Hello, I'm Chanel, this is Spirited Stardust, and today I'm doing the hashtag 10 Forever cards. It's by Nova Luna Tarot. So for this one though, I've just randomly grabbed 10 decks, mostly tarot, some oracle, because I thought, I'll just throw some oracles in there. And then I have gone through those decks and picked the cards that kind of stood out to me, because I would not be able to tell you what my absolute top 10 favorite cards of all time are. I just don't know. So yeah, so these are just 10 random decks, and let's get straight into it. So I'm starting with this card, the High Priestess. This is from my Deathly Flowers Tarot. I love this depiction. I found this image. I thought it was perfect. It has the sort of death and life, light and dark energies into it. And I feel like with the High Priestess that she navigates both the light and the dark, the shadow and the light, life and death. I very much see her as Persephone, so that goddess of life and rebirth and spring, and also the goddess of death and decay and darkness. The fact that she's also veiled really signifies that mysterious, enigmatic quality about the High Priestess. I love that it's a red veil. Red to me is reminiscent of blood, so it's like life force and vitality and womanhood. So I just really like the vibes of this deck as representative of the High Priestess. Okay, so the next card here is the Seven of Cups, and this is from the Dream Within Dreams Tarot. Now, I picked this because it's very eye-catching. I love the play on color and the blues and the moodiness, and also the way it draws your attention to the mirror image of the person. So even though there are options around her, she is looking at herself. She's placing her hand, I know it's not on her heart, but I feel like energetically it's meant to be on connecting to herself. So with this card, I feel like before making the choice, it's important to connect to you, to choose what is best for you. And to do that, you really have to go inward first. You have to, as she's doing, she's literally touching herself and looking into her own eyes so that she can make the best choice for her from the ones that are around her. I feel like that's what helps weed out the confusion of having so many choices, by getting back to you and asking yourself, what do I need? What is it that I want? What is going to benefit me most? Which one of these options is me? And choose yourself. So that's why I picked this card. The next card here is called Pain Giver, and this is from Sapphos Fragmented Oracle. So the meaning for this one, I'll read it out loud, is subversive power, manipulation. What could you cut off? And if you've noticed that the statues have been beheaded, it's also got just like this energy of doing the hard thing, like ripping off that band-aid, cutting off at the head anything that you don't want to continue to grow anymore. Really, it's like, the whole thing of deadheading your flowers. If you want more flowers to bloom, you have to deadhead them. You have to cut off the decay so that life can grow. And I feel like it's the same thing, like the life here, the greenness has been torn in half with this like fiery energy. And it's like, it reminds me of that saying too, no pain, no gain. Like sometimes, unfortunately, the way forward and the way to improve your circumstances is through pain, to have to undergo some kind of painful process, and whether that's cutting off people or removing things in your life that will only bring misery. And it's like it causes pain to cut them off, but the wound will then heal. It's like having gangrene on a foot. You have to cut the foot off, bro. Otherwise, it's going to slowly poison you and you will die. Whereas you can live without a foot. So that's kind of like the energy that this card gives to me. And here we have the Nine of Wands. This is from one of my favorite decks, which is the True Black. Now, generally the images I love the most in the True Black are the ones of the figures, so any of the major arcana or the court cards. I think they're the most stunning, but this deck too is a pip deck. It's pip-ish. Well, not, I wouldn't say full pip. I find the pips absolutely beautiful. I find them very evocative. So I wanted to pick one that really just created a very visceral, emotional response in me. And this Nine of Wands, I think, is so bloody good. So the keywords that they've put for this one are wary, guarded, mistreated, and persevering. So you've got this wolf. They are bleeding, they are injured, they have been sort of backed into a corner, but they are not giving up. This wolf is going to put up a fight to the very end. And because of that perseverance, because they're willing to do whatever it takes to survive, they will. There is hope that they are going to make it through and they are going to survive. So it's just like, even if you are backed into a corner, go out fighting. Like at the very least, if you do that, there is a chance that you will actually make it through, that you will persevere, that you will be resilient, and that you will be victorious. It's not over until it's over. Like, this wolf is just like, it's very chilling to me when I see it. I feel very much the energy of the card, and I think it's very well done. Like, every single card in this deck is well done. It's one of my favorite all-time tarot decks for a reason. But just, yeah, like I said, this Nine of Wands, which is not really, I'd say it's not a card that anyone wants to get, but it's also not one that people really look for when they open a new deck, like, oh, wonder how it's going to be depicted. But I just think this is fantastic. Like, the light is on the wolf. This wolf's choices are going to determine what happens from this point forward. Is it going to give up and die, or is it going to fight and live another day? So I just think it's a really stunning image. Okay, so next up we have the Soul Work card. This is from the Threads of Fate Lumen edition. I'll just do this because this is one of those decks where it just different light brings different things out of it. But I just love this picture, I love the coloring. The Soul Work card is about figuring out what your soul purpose is. It's got the bee. So the bee and the honeycomb is very significant in terms of serving the collective by being part of the hive and helping each other. You produce the honey, and it's all the more sweeter for it. It also is meant to be paired with the aspen tree, and I absolutely loved the meaning of this. So aspens grow in colonies where they all share an underground root system. So they're all actually part of a single same organism. So it doesn't matter if that one tree dies, because it's been cloned into the colony. So the heart of that tree will live on forever in the root system. And they are now like one of the oldest living organisms in the world. They say that they're estimated to be at least 80,000 years old. And let's use that as an example of your soul. So though your soul has lived many lifetimes and those lives all change, your soul is the underground root system. And each of your lives is an individual tree, but they are all part of the whole. And like, nothing is forgotten. So it's telling you to obviously tap into that sort of ancient part of yourself that has always been there and from which you've continued to sprout new lives. But that also too, we are all as a whole, all of our souls, part of the same network, part of the same colony. But I just think it's a beautiful card. Then I picked this card from the Tarot of Aphrodite. So this is the Queen of Wands. And I just feel like this really epitomizes a Queen of Wands energy. This woman, just from looking at her, you feel the confidence, you feel the sensuality, you feel the fiery, passionate kind of energy coming off her. She's a lady that does what she wants. You know, she is living her own life very vivaciously, very confidently, and I just felt like it really depicted the Queen of Wands energy. So next up, this is an image from the Nest of Light Oracle. This one actually definitely would be probably part of my top 10 cards of all time, because it brings me back. It's very nostalgic for me. It makes me reminisce about the time I went traveling through the countryside in France, and I just felt so at peace and connected to place. The villages that I visited in, I really was present in. The lavender fields were all around. I was obsessed with lavender at that point. I was eating everything lavender I could find there in France, and it just reminds me of that time in my life where I was just living and enjoying the moment, and that's why I've picked this card. So here we have Activist by Peter Bradley. This is part of the 78 Tarot Ecological. So in this depiction, you have an Australian, an Indigenous Australian, an Aboriginal, and they are tending to the land. So this Knight of Pentacles is sort of remind you to put the work in. Like, the Indigenous Australians revere the earth. They feel like they belong to it. The country is their mother, and they take care of it, and they put in the time, and they put in the work, and they are dedicated to living in harmony with their country. If you tend to the land, then the land will provide for you. And it just reminds you of that Knight of Pentacles energy, but also just to be a steward of the land and the earth, and to live in reciprocation, and that you do have to put the effort in, and that sometimes it is slow going. It's not instant gratification, but it is a worthy cause, and it is worth your time. Here we have the Hermit from the Cosmic Visions Tarot. I love this image because it shows the Hermit going within, so tending to her own garden, to her own inner sun, and also connecting to the divine, to the universal consciousness, with the rainbows too. It's just remind me of like tapping into all of the chakras. It's individual, whilst being individual, is also still connected to the whole. It's the inner and outer kind of energy with the Hermit, that sometimes you go inside. Sometimes you have to go within to get the answers you need for your external circumstances. And it's also got the phases of the moon. So it's just that whole, it's got a very cyclical, whole synergistic kind of energy to it. And I appreciate that it's not so insular, that it's not just a person in the woods, that it's just showing like, well, the journey isn't always, that the journey is sometimes within, or that the journey can be a connection to self or a connection to the whole. Like it changes. Whatever wisdom you need might be accessed in different ways, but it's all within you. Like, you have the ability to access the information that you need, the wisdom that you need, the answers, you can find them. And there's also it also just feels like too that sometimes you do have to be quiet so that you can hear the answer. But I just think it's very pretty. It's very pretty. And the last card here, this is the Eight of Cups from the Heartscape Tarot. I love that whole deck. All the cards in there are very pretty, but this one was just very interesting to me. So I didn't choose the cards that were the prettiest aesthetically. I tried to choose ones that made me think a bit or see something in a different way. And this Eight of Cups, for me, what I get from it is that perhaps they're now in a desert. So perhaps there was a lush oasis and a stream and life and fertility and plenty and abundance, but that has gone now. There is nothing left but dunes of sand, and if you stay there without water, you will die. And I don't just mean physically, but I mean your heart. What was once there, there is now a drought, and if you stay in the drought, then your heart will wither away. And you have to turn away and find a new oasis where you can drink, where you can be quenched, where you can thrive. Because here, there is nothing else for you. You need to leave it behind and find a fresh stream. And so I just really love like the starkness of it. It's just very simple. It's very quiet, but you can say like, yes, you need to leave these cups in the sand and go towards life. And that's why I have chosen it. So those were 10 cards that I found very interesting from 10 random decks. Until next time, stay wild, Star Child.